After the wide open straights of Road America, things are going to get a bit cramped. Zandvoort packs a lot into its small footprint on the sandy coast. Will drivers respect each other's space? Will they be pushing and shoving again? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch the PCA Sim Racing Series 11 Club Class. And you'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. I am Joe Peak, and I'll be joined later by Reese Gardner. Behind the scenes is our director, Dustin Allis. We're here today for the latest round in this fantastic Series 11 season, and drivers are certainly going to have their hands full at what is an incredibly technical track. You can see that there is much to be concerned about in terms of just back and forth constantly. It's not that long of a circuit at just over 2.5 miles, and yet look at how many corners are packed into it. And there's many unique corners around here. Watch out for the banking at Tarzan, Hugenholtz, as well as the new banking at Lyondike, the very last corner, to try and open up that front stretch for potential passes into Tarzan. But we've seen a lot of drivers struggle to try and make passes, so we're expecting track position will be key, and qualifying could be a crucial part of this one. But let's take as well a look at the championship. And up at the top, it is Terrence Tong. Klaus Nielsen has not won since race 2, so he needs to get back on the horse here and try and get back up to the front. In fact, has not had great finishes the last 2 rounds. But with him not being that far behind Terrence, he could still be in it. It's still quite tight here in the club class, as you can see, with only about 24 points between first and sixth. And the reason that's important is because it's 25 points for wins. So technically everybody here, except for, of course, the math of the drop weeks, means those top 6 could find themselves up on the top step after tonight's event. Certainly is going to be fun to see who can manage to try and pull one off, since if they get a good qualifying, they could try and hold things down up at the front, as everybody else struggles to try and overtake them if they're pretty close on pace today. They are in the midst of the warm-up, which looks like will wrap up in about 3 minutes' time. And as we've seen in the previous races, they're taking place relatively early in the morning, just past or just before 6:30 a.m. virtual standard time here on the coast of the Netherlands. So drivers will have nice, cool temperatures out there on the track all race long. It's just a bit dark, but it's not anything too outrageous for them. Right now, Mario Gonzalez currently looking like he holds the fastest lap in the warm-up. Well, as soon as I said that, Terrence Tong, our points leader, has now jumped up to the top. So he is going to look quick here today once again, although it's quite tight. This is the second highest class of the 5 competing classes here in the PCA. They've got entry, challenge, sport. This is club, and then pro is the only higher one up than this. So this is starting to get to the very serious level, and we kind of expect things to be quite tight in terms of time. But this is just the warm-up, and that will likely change as things go on, as drivers will try and put those laps down. Now, they only get 3 laps in that qualifying session. It is limited to 10 minutes, but once you complete those 3 laps, that is it. You can't do anything more than that. So you need to be clean. Those not familiar with iRacing, if you go off track, if you touch the wall, if you spin during those qualifying laps, it deletes that lap. So it's not just staying within the track limits that they need to be concerned with. They also need to make sure that they don't spin out or brush a wall somewhere. And considering there is a couple places, including that last bank corner you're going to see here coming through Lyondike, not a place where you want to put it right up to the outside and brush that one. Now, a lot easier not to do that in this version. The old version, which was flat, you could easily just drift that little bit too far outside there. But now it's just foot to the floor all the way through down into Tarzan. As I mentioned before, one of the most popular places to try and overtake, with that front stretch being really the longest straightaway that they'll have here today. 30 seconds left to go in the warm-up for this one. We've got a pretty darn full field, more than 30 cars out there today. We already saw last time out with the sport class that traffic can be a major concern pretty quickly since it isn't that long of a lap. These GT cars already circulating here in just over a minute and a half. So that's about the average time, but you have to remember, this is a Grand Prix course. Typically, those see slightly longer lap times since they're for the high downforce open wheelers of Formula One. So it looks like that clock has hit 0, and so we're going to head off to that qualifying session. What can Tong do to try and keep himself up at the top of these points? And what about Matthew Jokel? He's one that's also been having a pretty good season lately. In fact, he was the one that took victory last time out at Road America. So he's on good form. He's got momentum on his side. He could find himself trying to carry that on today as we watch Terrence Tong come out and into into Gerlach and then Hugenholtz. That's the newly progressively banked corner, which is definitely unique in terms of road racing. See that quite a bit nowadays over on the oval side, but not as much here. And it's added a very fantastic and exciting element to this circuit. This is Sheevlock. This is the last regular corner of this track before it got changed in the 90s and then into Masters. This is where they changed the track since the old days, back from the 50s up to the 80s. And then it's very, very technical in through here. You can see coming through turn 9 and into 10, just back and forth set of hairpins, very slow. Canadian going to try and get his foot down, a little bit of a correction off the turn. And really the only other decently long straight that they've got here. This is coming down into Hans Ernst. Heavy braking. Sometimes can see passes into here. It's tricky because, as you can see, it's a tight little chicane, so drivers can trip over each other quite easily. Then it's into Kumho, which is really the last actual corner before they are foot to the floor all the way to the finish, coming through Lion Dyke. Look at how steeply banked it is through here. And it looks like he's actually taking a page from oval racing, going up to the high side, a longer little bit of the lap, meaning he'll get more momentum down into turn 1. So Terrence Tong clearly using every trick in the book he can think of. But we still don't have any lap times yet, since that was just the warm-up lap. Drivers still need to cycle on back around before we start to see some up on the board here, as the Rexy painted car with the pink tinge on the 388 going to head up through Schlotemacher, back to Sheevlock once again. Terrifying blind entry into this right-hander with its own bit of camber all the way through. And down into the quick flip that is Masters. Curved braking zone now into this new section too. You can see it is tricky to try and get the car woed up and find your braking spot into there. Then so critical trying to get that throttle down like we saw last time. Coming out of 10, oh, he really pushes the limit, bounding over that exit curb. I didn't see any dirt kick up, so I think he should have been well within the track limits. I don't think this one will get deleted for Terrence. We come around down into the braking for Kumho now. Let's see what kind of lap time he's going to be able to put on the board. Is this going to be pole position for our points leader? He'll cross the timing line, and it's going to be a 33.7. So that is going to be good enough for P2. Klaus Nielsen, I said he needed to strike back. And look at that. He's on provisional pole only for a brief moment before Mark Collingwood now goes fastest out there. Looks like Kim Fricke up to 13th. And let's check in on some of the drivers that haven't managed to set a time. I see Mark Rondeau still without one. Looks like his first lap got deleted. Joachim Baker as well, still needing to set a lap. Although I see one on my timing, but it looks like ATVO on my computer is not counting it, and it doesn't seem like it's counted either here on the feed. So this is a bit strange. Never seen a bug like this quite before. Not sure what exactly is happening, but hopefully Hopefully he'll be able to get one up here. Collingwood still on provisional pole by 17 thousandths of a second over the 04 of Klaus Nielsen. Lenny Holland moved up into third, with Gonzalez also beating Tong. So Terrence definitely got pushed down a bit as the laps started to go in, but they get 3 of them, don't forget. So this could still change. And with it being so cool, it could be a case of the drivers needing to get those tires up to temperature, finding a little bit more pace each and every lap because they haven't quite hit their peak yet, haven't had the most taken out of them. Coming down into the timing line. This time it looks like it should count, and boy, does it count. 7th place for Baker. So the 330 jumps way up the order. It's a good thing he had that one in. Still need Dean Chapman, Mark Rondeau, Jonathan Reber, and Brandon Harrison to set lap times. This is Rondeau that we see currently, and his first 2 laps, wow, it looks like they did not count either of them. Off tracks in both cases. He is under the gun, the 011. He needs a good qualifying now on this last time around. He's currently 14th in the points, so he is a decently quick driver. This is going to be crushing to him if he winds up starting from the very, very back of the field in this race. Now, he will have opportunities to try and overtake through strategy, and we've seen that, I believe, with the sport race last time out. A couple drivers employing that to pretty decent effect, but it's not common, and it's very risky. Usually it's not the optimum strategy, as you want to try and stay out as long as possible. Those who try to undercut usually don't have the pace to try and do so unless they are in very clear air for a decent amount of laps. As he breaks down into Hans Ernst, Rondeau is now the only driver that has failed to set a time. So he truly will be at the very tail end of the field if he does not manage to put this one down. Looks like, oh, Nielsen just took the pole back from Collingwood. So his last lap, good enough for the fastest time. Meanwhile, Rondeau, 34-1. He finally gets one down. That'll put him right about in the middle of the field into 17th. Collingwood takes his final lap, 24 thousandths off the pole time. Philip Milan is up into third since we weren't looking. His last lap, not going to be any sort of improvement. We go down to 21st now. Dean Chapman on his final flying lap, 34.4, is going to stay a 34.4 as he was off by about 8 hundredths on that last lap, unfortunately. Checking to see if anybody can set a time, and it doesn't look like we've got anybody else able to put one down. Yeah, that is all drivers, even though we've got about 2.5 minutes left to go. The grid is set for today's race. Well, it looks like some have averted disaster, but for those that are down towards the lower half of the field, Mazzariello, Franco, Cottle, Boyer, they're going to have a bit of a rough time coming from the very tail end. Now, that's not to say that we could have some drivers run into issues, so they could use it through attrition. Let's go through our starting order for today's race, as Klaus Nielsen is going to be on the pole position with Mark Collingwood next to him. Then it's Philip Milan in the 3rd spot. Terrence Tong starts P4, and Mario Gonzalez will be 5th. Lenny Holland, 6th for him today, is then got Andy Jenks in 7th, flanked by Ben Leung. We've got row 5 with David Fernandez in 9th, and Joachim Baker, good enough for 10th in the end. Julian Velez will start P11, and the last of our second slide sees Matthew Jokel in 12th. Michael McKenney starts P13. You've got Rick Reinsberg in the 14th spot. David Glenn will be P15. Patrick Adamczyk, good enough for Sweet 16, as Mike Matson will be the inside of the next row, and Mark Rondeau will be the outside in 18th. Kim Fricke starts 19th today. You've got Chris Sherburne in the 20th spot. Dean Chapman will be on the inside of the following row. Peter Kummer will be in the 22nd spot out there. Gary Reese will be P23. And Andy Green will be in 24th. Scott Bowers starts in the quarter century mark today. He'll have Mark Doran to his outside in 26. It'll be Jared Gregory starting in 27th position. Then Brandon Harrison in 28th and Jonathan Reaper 29th. Top 30 going to be rounded out by Drew Kenny. Just a few more to finish out our field. Matt Owens starts 31st. You got David Palmer 32nd, and then Charlie Boyer in 33rd. After that, Robert Cott will be at the outside of the next row, 34th. Richard Franco, 35th. Jeremy Mazzariello starting 36th. Duncan James did not set a time. It does look like he's in the session. I'm not sure if he plans on lining up. If he does, that'll be 37 cars starting off here today. Okay, then, as drivers will prep to get ready for the grid on this one, they'll have a partial warm-up lap, then they will be released and on their way for the latest race here in Series 11 for the Porsche Owners Club of America, or Porsche's Club of America, as they get ready to start off here in the early morning here at Zandvoort. Let's take a look at what they're going to be up against in terms of the weather on the track. 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Like I was saying, it's quite cool out there. 65 air temperature. That's 18 Celsius for the metric friends as well. And it's just a little windy at about 10 miles per hour. So not too bad. Not going to gust them around all that much. But like we said, it's 6:25 a.m. virtual standard time. Not sure why it says, oh, it does say 6:25. It was small on my screen. I thought it said 8:25 for a second. I was getting a little bit confused on that one. So just a small font for, maybe I really am getting old at this stage. Okay, so Nielsen versus Collingwood. Will we see Mark get a good enough launch they could challenge around the outside at the start of this race? We've seen drivers try to challenge down into Tarzan with the banking. It's sometimes possible to try and hold your own. He's going to have to be aggressive at the very start on the colder tires, and these drivers are often discouraged from that sort of stuff because they hold a very high standard in PCA for having a clean first lap. Now, they can actually throw the full course yellow if they have any sort of big accident that collects too many drivers, because they want drivers to be able to get to compete. So they'll throw out the yellow, they'll back them up, and they do have a spare car in case of those situations. So they can use that to their advantage as well. But in general, they stress clean and fair racing in this series. They have live stewards watching that can hand out penalties too. And that's one thing I do love about this, is that they have people watching every single session, making sure that nobody thinks they can get away with someone and then just reap the repercussions later on. You'll get punished live if they find that you've been a little bit egregious in how you've been racing your fellow competitors. All right, down through the last couple corners here, and off we go for our latest race in PCA. Porsche Club of America going to see how they do in the Netherlands at what has become a much more well-known track than it was just a few years ago, thanks to the popularity of Max Verstappen bringing back the Dutch Grand Prix after many, many years of being away. Pace car peels in. Klaus Nielsen's going to have control of the field. He waits for the signal from the flag stand, and there it is. Green flag is out. Very good jump for Klaus. He is going to be able to get fully ahead of Collingwood. Will he be able to stay that way under braking down to the first corner? Third place, Milan. He's actually going to sneak inside. He could take this second place away from the number 13 as they exit out of the first corner. Doesn't get a good launch, and he's blinking on top of it. Not looking good. He's going to slot in behind, as I'm not seeing any incidents behind them. So far, so good, but we still have Gerlach and Hugenholtz to go. These can sometimes be a little bit messy, but looks like everything is kosher, and we are on our way now up the hill through Schlotemacher. Still being led by Nielsen. Collingwood in second as he started along with Milan. Terrence Tong unable to improve on that fourth place. here at the start as they fly through Masters now, down into the braking. Looks like it's already very, very single file. A little bit of a peek down back through the mid-pack, but no changes amongst any of them. Oh, but it is a right mess back here as multiple two, well, even three wide nearly in some situations. Sounds like a couple cars actually under review right now for lane changes on that start, though. They must stay in their lane before they cross the start-finish line. And the stewards were watching. We could see a few black flags before they even get there. Coming down into the braking of Hans Ernst, still trying to sort it out. This is, oh, and a bit of a spin. It looks like J.R. Gregory, I believe, involved in that. And it looks like Mark Doran. At least one of them, I think, had a bit of contact. The other might not have. We come back to our leaders, completing the first lap. Nielsen, Collingwood, Milan, still how they were. Something's wrong with Mario Gonzalez, who's down in pit lane. I don't see a black flag next to his name. Not sure what that's about. 777 pulls into a stall. Now, this is too early for the scheduled pit stop. Not sure if he has to take some repairs or something that we missed or what. We check in on Collingwood. Boy, Milan was aggressive right down into turn one at Tarzan right at the beginning. Collingwood obviously going to have to mind those mirrors if this pace stays up for the 94. Meanwhile, this was, so that looks like that was Gonzalez and, Doran and Gregory having their connection issues and having a little bit of a bump. I think it was Doran that had that little bump that turned him to the inside. Thankfully, it wasn't a hard hit. He gets it going once again, and we're on our way. Meanwhile, the 13 versus the 94 rages on. Still only the second lap. This is the 31 versus the 917, a little bit farther down in the order. This is for 10th place that they're fighting for. Julian Velez, Matthew Jokel, and Michael McKinney. Just approaching the back of him, taking a big look up the inside. Instead, it's going to be Jokel that actually slides it in late. He'll get the apex away, but like I said, that outside with the banking, you're able to defend. Velez used it excellently. Now through Hugenholz, trying to square off that exit. Get as good of a run as they can. Definitely need it because you're on the throttle quite a bit. It might not be a straight. Oh, Rondeau looks like he's got an issue. And that is Mike Matson who is with him. This is coming up through Schlotemacher. This is a very narrow part of the track too. So they have to be careful about how they rejoin. Looks like they're staying patient. Poor Matson is facing backwards though. So he's got a harder time trying to get going as we come back to Terrence Tong and those behind him once more. This is Holland. It looks like Jenks and Ben Leung in here, very close to the back of the number one. Let's check out what happened to Rondeau. It's a strange place to wreck. Maybe just a bit of miscommunication, it seems. Yeah, unfortunately, looks like we won't get another look at that one for now. Back to the 290 of Ben. So we come down out of the final turn and onto the main straight once more. It's Fernandez behind him. But they're all kind of separating. Drivers settling in a bit here and there. Peter Coomer looks like he's getting close down in 20th. Drew Kenny is in front of him. Wonder if he's going to be under threat here. Kenny is up 11 positions, and you see them nose to tail coming through Tarzan. That's Kenny in the number 19, Coomer in the 333. Was close enough, I thought. Maybe he'd have a shot into Tarzan, but no dice right now. He's just got to watch out because Gary Reese is behind him. Bad exit for Kenny, though. Look at that. Once again, already the 333 all on top of the rear wing of the number 19, but it's hard to pass into Shevelock. Can't really do anything there. He backs out of it. Coming into Masters once again. Got a couple cars in front of them. They don't want to mess around too much because Chapman, Sherburne, Fricky are all close. That could be a battle starting to form. And if they slow each other up, could be easy pickings. Watch out for them having to mind themselves so that they don't get overtaken when they squabble amongst each other. Down into the break-in of Hans Ernst. This is what I was talking about earlier. So difficult to pass at this track. You almost need a mistake from that car ahead, which is why they're probably eagerly awaiting, salivating to the thought of those drivers battling one another. Sounds like we got a replay on what happened to Robert Cottle. He's towards the back of the field. Don't think we've seen anything of this yet. Oh, the back goes around, and he gets hit as well. Didn't quite see who that was, but definitely got a good thwack there coming out of Shevelock. Now, this is also the first time we're seeing open setups here at Zandvoort, because the previous two classes that we covered last week were fixed setup. This time, it's up to the drivers to try and figure out how to make the car fast and planted out on the track. And some of these high-speed corners definitely going to be tricky in the Porsche. This is from onboard Jenks on Leung. Battling for that 6th position right now. They're starting to drop off a little bit from Lenny Holland there in P5. Wonder if this is maybe Leung hoping he can get by and keep touch with that top 5 group. Don't want to lose grasp of them, knowing that he needs to be there to try and pick up on any mistakes. Because like I said, if you're not there to try and capitalize, then unfortunately it's going to be tough to try and get one later on, get any sort of opportunity. Ben Leung, can't afford to do that. Looks like the 610 car of Dean Chapman spins it around coming down into the Hans Ernst chicane. I wonder if he had a little bit of help, because not sure you'd really be facing backwards like that coming into there that way. I suspect someone made contact with him. Back to the lead. Well, it was Milan on Collingwood earlier, but look at this. They've dropped 3rd place. Nielsen now has the man behind him, the number 13 instead. Let's take a look, see if Chapman gets hit. And yes, the 19 absolutely comes into the back of him. That was Kenny, I believe, that got into him. So that's Drew Kenny that unfortunately made that contact. So I wonder if that'll see some sort of black flag or penalty a little later on. Still haven't gotten any from the start, so I assume maybe the drivers are going to be able to get away with it. Maybe they just had to kind of get out of line to avoid some drivers checking up so that they didn't cause an accident. Back to the battle for 8th. This is Fernandez. More like, I'd say, probably a battle for 6. It's Jenks up at the front of the train, and it goes all the way back to McKenney in 12th position. A lot of drivers close together, just waiting patiently. And this would be a prime group for trying to pull a bit of an undercut. Maybe not a huge one, just enough to try and a lap or two to try and see if they can get some clear air and overtake them. A little bit ahead of them. Tong versus Holland now. I mentioned Lenny was getting farther away from those behind him. That frees him up to try and attack on Terrence if he wants to, but he can't seem to get side by side. They'll stay put where they are. There you can see the last lap between them. Looks like a little bit faster for Holland, just shy of 0.2 quicker. He's definitely got pace underneath them. Are they also quicker than Milan as well? Let me see what their last lap time looked like. Milan with a 34.6. He was only marginally slower than Tong. There's a few hundredths of a second, so that's not enough really to be concerned about, at least at this stage. Quarter of the way into the race now. This battle keeps going for 4th position. Tong doing a good job soaking it up while Holland fills his mirrors and his lights light them up. That's also got to be distracting with this dim light here in the morning. Ooh, coming down to the braking. Got a nice little fight coming into turn 9. That's going to be Kenny once again. Drew Kenny in the number 19. Fighting off Kummer and Reese, along with Green back there. 4-car fight for that 18th position. Oh, but Kenny is going to be gone very soon from this fight. He just got a black flag for changing lanes before the start-finish line. I spoke too soon. Charlie Boyer, the other one in the 013, who is going to be having to serve that into the lane pretty soon. So let's see if they serve it right away. Nope, we're going to stay out. Was just handed it moments ago. Whoa, we got a problem with Tong and Holland. I'm going to take a guess that involved the cars making some sort of contact, or at least an attempt at a pass down into Tarzan, and they're going to pay for it. We're going to take a look down to the apex. Tong thought he was clear, and unfortunately Holland says, no, you're not, and they come together, and back down the order they go. Holland already up to 17th. He just managed to overtake Kenny. Hopefully someone's on the radio to tell him you don't have to fight Kenny that hard, because he's going to be going into the lane to serve a black flag. He's not, your race is not with him. Just don't lose time if you do battle with him. Where did Tong wind up? He's 11th, it looks like. So he recovered a little bit quicker. But this will promote a couple drivers. Jenks now up into 4th. Ben Leung into P5. Fernandez up into 6th. Baker into P7. Whoa, we got a spinner. That was Coomer, unfortunately. And it looks like Kenny having more problems than backing up under the racing line. And he's going to get hit. And that was almost predictable, as Dean Chapman was the one that got into him. Thankfully, I don't think he got him that hard, as he saw it and was trying to brake as hard as he could. Cars coming together once again, both of them spinning around. Yeah, that's you can't back into the racing line. That is likely going to be a penalty. Terrence Tong pitting in. Did he have... No, he doesn't have a black and orange flag, but Drew Kenny does. Oh, no. So Drew Kenny now has a black flag and a meatball flag. So the day just went from bad to worse for the number 19 here. Tong is within the pit window. So this might actually be a smart idea from Terrence Tong. Now he's going to be well down the order, and this is where he needs to hope that he is in clear airs. We check in on the battle for 8th in the meantime. Velez just ahead of Jokel, McKinney, and Matson. This is McKinney here in that 5-2-7. Coming down through the back and forth of 9 and 10. He's trying to stick right up underneath that rear spoiler. Doesn't want to lose touch. Lenny Holland also given a black flag for an incident. Drew Kenny as well. So drivers... Oh, and what's going on with Kenny here? That's live, facing the wrong way in a spot where usually the cars don't wind up. Maybe, you know what? I wonder if he had some damage, and that's what that black and orange flag was about, suspension damage. Car could not turn through that high-speed right-hander. Couldn't manage to keep it together. Around he went. Yeah, I'm getting confirmation that it was the car limping home and just couldn't drive it back. So I wonder if that'll be it for him, and he won't return to the track, or if he's going to take that spare car and try to gather whatever points he can. Up and around turn 3 through Hugenholtz. This is still McKinney versus Jokel versus Velez. So that battle for 8th, haven't left it during this whole time. It does look like it's separating a little bit. McKinney kind of dropping off of them bit by bit. So I think we're going to jump forward once again with the different lines down through Hugenholtz. No, excuse me, this is jumping backwards. This is down to Jonathan Reber, sandwiched between Palmer and Rondeau. Remember, Rondeau a little bit out of position here, currently 5 down from where he started. He's going to be eager. He's going to have the red mist down. Little peek to the inside from Reber on Palmer. Decides not to try and risk it down in the Masters. Probably a smart choice, frankly. Still, Reber under threat as Rondeau Getting close to the back of him, down through turn 10. Not close enough. Can't try and actually get any overlap. We're closing in on the halfway point of this race. Now look to the inside as Reber tries an aggressive move down into Hans Ernst. Nothing doing, though. Once again, the apex went to Palmer, and he'll stay ahead at least for now. Out through the final corner of Lyondike. This is where you need that good exit, is behind them. Holland, or Rondeau pitting, and Holland in front of them. Also, Matson pitting. Number of drivers. This is, again, earlier than we typically expect, but maybe this comes down to drivers who are trying to undercut their rivals. So we jump up to 15th and 14th. This is Kim Fricke versus Sherburne. Coming down into Masters. A couple of cars close to in front of them. Reinsberg, Adamczyk, and Glenn. So they don't want to mess around with each other all that much if they've got pace. Certainly want to try and see if they can catch up to that group. Unless you're Sherburne, who we ride on board with right now, and think you are that much faster, then of course you want to try and overtake Kim Fricke here. Switching down for Hans Ernst once again. Looking to set up the exit here of Kumho. Quite a bit of banking here as well, but you can understeer off into that gravel. Looks like he kept it within the boundaries. Look at how steep this banking is through here. Really something that you don't see anywhere else on the roadside of racing, especially on modern FIA Grade 1 tracks. All right, coming back up to 4th in the meantime. Remember we mentioned earlier, Andy Jenks managed to snag that after we had issues for Tong. Well, he's had Ben Leung close behind him. And Fernandez, no, he's a bit far back, although they are about a second and a half behind them. So you might, see flashes of them there in the background. But he is definitely much closer to that number 1 machine. That's a lapped car in front of him. That's Robert Cottle. Looks like he's trying to stay out of the way of most drivers. Just allowed Milan to go through. Is he going to pull over here? No. Oh, what happened to Palmer down in 23rd? Car, it looks like it might not be in good condition after that one. He's going to keep it moving. Let's see. Oh, and once again, it's so rare that I've seen wrecks through this part in modern GT cars. And yet twice now we've had drivers coming together and causing accidents up through Schlotemacher. Again, it's considered a corner, but it's easily flat out in these cars. So it just comes down to drivers just not giving each other space through there. Up at the front, Nielsen, we mentioned he was under threat from Collingwood. Well, that's no more. I mean, it is almost 3 seconds to mark here in the Potomac region. And his number 13 has dropped back. Guess the slipstream maybe pulling him along, or maybe Klaus just has a setup that's a little bit stronger late in the race. Milan, 3rd behind them, equidistant here between our top 3, another 3.5 seconds. But not the case here for 4th. That we were watching before between Jenks and Leung. Back through Schlotemacher, taking a look here at P4. Not sure. Is this actually P4 though? We've got a. That is, yes, now, we do have them. Excuse me, I got a little bit lost there. And coming out of Hans Ernst, they can see Milan in front of him. It's about 2 seconds. Just needs to make up that little bit. That could be possible with a very good pit stop and the right timing to try and undercut him as well. Nobody looking like they're taking it, although some of them weaving down the front straight to try and break the slipstream. Saw somebody pop in there. I thought, no, that is just lap traffic. That's just pulling aside. That's Robert Cottle once again. As we come out of Hugenholtz. Then up and over Hunsrück into Schlotemacher. Lots of elevation change at this track. Even though it's right next to the beach, it goes up and over the dunes. Quite hilly through here. Meanwhile, as we watch them come through 9 and 10, fortunately, sounds like Drew Kenny was DQ'd from this race. Don't have the full story. I'll try and get that a little bit later, but it has not been the race for him. So we fly down into Hans Ernst yet again. 18 minutes to go. Whoa, and a mistake from Jenks. He's going to swing a little bit wide there. You can see him side by side now. Leong's going to be able to sneak through, and that will get him up into fourth. That's exactly what I've been talking about. Drivers need to be very aware of what's happened in front of them. Sounds like we might have a replay of that one to get a second look at it. He just overcooked the exit maybe a little bit. Yeah, look at it, understeer. Car was not happy turning the wheel, but it didn't want to follow. And Ben says, thank you very much. I got a much better exit. I'm just going to pick that one up. 66 of Kim Fricke versus Chris Sherburne. Ooh, we got Andy Green pitting in. So a couple more drivers, I guess, taking their service at this stage of the race. Doesn't look like anybody else around him pitting in from what I could tell on my timing and scoring while we stay on this battle for 14th. Not too far behind David Glenn, although he just overtook Cottle. That's the car that's currently between them. We look up to 6th place, Fernandez. This is Baker and Velez just behind him. Seen a lot of this today. Drivers so close, so achingly close, and yet they can't seem to really get anything unless they can shake something out of that car in front. They really need to try and pressure them a little bit harder. Coming out of Hans Ernst towards Kumho. This is one of those places you need to be right up on there to apply that pressure. You need to get that throttle down, try and use that slipstream to get close to the car in front. None of these drivers able to do so in this group, unfortunately. Just a little bit too far away from one another. Oh, in the background, though, does look like that's McKinney on Jokel. And in fact, Jokel's going to have to defend down to the inside. Could we get an undercut from McKinney? Oh, just about. Michael with an excellent exit. He'll be on the inside into Hugenholtz. He'll be the outside or inside of Gerlach, outside of Hugenholtz, which is actually where he wants to be. He'll get him the better launch. There it goes. Rim riding the 527 up to 9th. Beautiful move. Set himself up perfectly. Wonder if he knew that was how that was going to play out, or it just kind of worked out that they were still side by side by the time they got to that progressive banking. Either way, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. That worked wonderfully for McKinney. Slowing up into turn 9 once more. Looks like David Palmer, our latest to be pitting in, still waiting for the top 20, top 19 out on track to take their pit stops. In fact, just around that point is the likes of Reber, Tong, Owens. Tong, if he's had to make an overtake there on Owens, then he could have been slowed up a little bit. It's going to be crucial that he gets by Reber as quickly as he can. Keep talking about this strategy. If he's running laps where he's battling side by side with cars and his rivals that he were with before the pit stop are racing in clear air, then he's going to get jumped, leapfrogged once they execute their strategy. That's why it's so important that he be able to push as hard as he can in clean air from here. Meanwhile, back to the battle for P6. We've been watching this every once in a while. Fernandez still retaining that spot over Jochen Baker. Up through Hugenholtz. This is Hunsrück, which literally translates to Huns Ridge. And then into Rob Schlotemacher. Watch his curved braking, though, up into Schivlock. Like I said, it's got that blind crest, and at the same time, you're trying to square up the car through there. It is supremely tricky. Perhaps one of the more underrated racetracks, I'd say, just because of all the different things that it forces a driver to do that's not all that comfortable often in the car. Have to say, I've not enjoyed racing it as much, although I do love the new version way better. I just enjoy it so much more than the old version. It's amazing what the banking will do for that, but it's still tough. I'm not very good at it, I have to admit. These guys doing fantastic out there today. But Fernandez will still stay in 6, although he's catching Jenks. Let's see, last lap for Jenks was 34.5, Fernandez 34.7. Actually, David lost on that last lap, but looks like he closed in this time. So let's see as they cross the line, as Andy puts a 34.7, David 34.4. Yeah, well, like I said, looked like he was much quicker. That was 0.3 that he chopped off. And Jochen Baker, who was close to that fight, he's going to pit in. Now, they do not take tires in this. Remember that. So it's not an undercut for tires. It is all down to your pace when you're not racing against your rivals. But you do put in more fuel, so you're going to be a little bit heavier than your rivals, too, on top of things, which is the reason that you don't often see the undercut work in GT cars on iRacing. Cars are just a little too fuel dependent for speed, at least. Klaus Nielsen getting his obligatory screen time for leading this race, but frankly not all that interesting ever since he dropped Mark Collingwood. This is the sort of boring race that drivers actually want. Up at the front, controlling things, don't need the screen time because they've just been racing by themselves. Collingwood now to about 3.1 seconds behind him. That's a lapped car as Milan goes by Charlie Boyer. Still need these drivers to pit in. Now, this is actually about the time that we're expecting many of them to do so. And just as I say that, Klaus Nielsen pits in. Looks like Collingwood also pitting in. Milan taking his time for strategy now. Let's see. Ben Leung looks like he is going to pit in. And Andy Jenks is our only driver in the top group that is going to be able to stay out. McKinney, I guess you could count in that one too. They will inherit first and second. Reinsberg will now be up to third, but they owe us a pit stop. Nielsen already coming back out on track, as you can see on screen. All right. We pick back up now in the final quarter of this race as drivers finish up those pit stops. Looks like there are 7 drivers that have managed to stay out. Impressive stuff here. This track does help that fuel saving, though, since you've got a lot of opportunities to lift and coast down the corners. And we were talking about Tong taking that early stop. I think he's maybe a little farther forward than what he was when he made the pit stop, but I think he's going to inherit a couple more positions as well. He's sitting in 12th right now, and I don't have my notes with me on where he was before he made his pit stop. Regardless, we've got about, 6 cars that could potentially get overtaken by him. I think half of them will, half of them won't. Number 1 of Andy Jenks, your new leader, likely going to be pitting in this lap. Down to the entry. Yep, he's already holding to the right-hand side to signify. Need good precision down into that chicane under braking. Thankfully, does not lose control. He'll be in. McKinney is in. Reinsberg is in. Fricky pits. That leaves just Sherburne and Reese. And both of them are pitting in. So the order should return here in just a moment. Oh, excuse me. Sherburne didn't pit. He goes an extra lap on top of that. Somebody check the fuel lines on that thing for an illegal length on it. Car looks like it is just sipping fuel today. So Nielsen will not inherit the lead back once again. He's actually close to doing so. He's only 2.3 seconds behind Sherburne. Those drivers that just stopped, looks like, where is that going to put Tong now? He is 9th place. There he is on screen. So yeah, that worked out, I'd say, decently well. So I think his call was a good one in the end. He's just behind McKinney. Could still get one more position before this is done. He's trying to stretch away from Jokel in the meantime. And returning to the circuit, looks like we're going to watch the 94 as well. This is Milan. That was Mario Gonzalez who was coming back onto the track. And no, he doesn't quite have enough speed as Matt Owens going to go wide at Gerlach. He'll hold him off. That is a scary place to go too wide. It's a blind crest, right-hand flick into braking there. So having to deal with a car to your inside suddenly is going to be frightening. Back to Jenks. Oh, and sounds like Doran, he was involved in an accident early on, might have had more trouble coming through Hugenholtz. I think he and Franco may have had a little bit of contact. Looks like we got the replay here. Oh, was not anticipating Franco being that slow through the corner. Together they hit, and thankfully it was a pretty minor skirmish. They'll carry on. Sherburne finally pits and returns to the track. Oh, in the thick of the battle. This is, yeah, there we go. Now we've got him on screen. So close to multiple cars. If he was just about 0.2 faster on pit lane, he would have had about 3 positions. That tells you how tight it is here in club. In fact, with 32 cars still running, 29 are still on the lead lap. That's impressive, with it being only a minute and a half here for a 40-minute race. Back to 7th place, Michael McKinney. That's Tong that we were talking about. We said, well, he could maybe get another spot. He said, yeah, I can. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to start putting the pressure on. I got 7 minutes to try and see if I can overtake this 527. Just a little bit of an off track, going to cost him a couple car lengths, unfortunately. It's also that battle for 4th that we saw before the pit stops. It picks right back up, except for the fact that now Velez, I think, is a little closer than he was before. And in fact, Fernandez is very close to Jenks too. Oh, Jenks into pit lane. He has a black flag. Checking to see, there was nothing from race control. That was probably speeding on pit lane or maybe a bad pit exit. We did get, I think, at least one driver in, it was either Challenger Sport, that also crossed the pit exit line, had to come back in, serve that penalty. Okay, so this now means that Fernandez, it's still a battle for 4th, but Fernandez is now in 4th. Velez is in 5th. That promotes McKinney and Tong to the battle for 6th, too. Cannot make any mistakes in this series. Everybody is trying to be flawless out there. As soon as you dip a wheel off like that or just cross a line that'll get you a black flag, it's going to be painful. 5 minutes left in this sunrise race. Ooh, getting very close to the back of that car. Is he going to try anything down into Hans Ernst? If he's aggressive, he could. I don't think he's close enough, though. Yeah, that's looking too far back, and he decides he can't try and make the dive right now. Maybe later. Back through the last couple corners. Ooh, much tighter through the penultimate turn for the 33 of Velez, and that's paid massive dividends. Here we go, down the main straight. Haven't seen a whole lot of passes into turn 1 so far today. Are we going to get one here? David's going to try and keep it from being the case as he defends down to the inside. Much later braking around the outside for Velez. He goes on the throttle as quick as he can, and he's going to do it the hard way. Impressive. That'll put him into 4th place. Unfortunately, at 4 minutes left and a 5-second gap up to Baker, don't think he's going to be able to try and get up onto the podium. Ooh, goodness, look at this battle for 8th place. That's Jokel ahead of Adamczyk, ahead of Reinsberg, Sherburne, and Glenn. This is all for position, and they're not too far behind McKinney and Tong, too. Will the tempers hold out? Will drivers be able to keep themselves from making wild dives at the end, especially those who've been stuck behind for much of the race, or those that are on a recovery drive? Can they keep the red mist from making poor decisions? Already had a number of black flags. Looks like Mark Doran got one, I think, for that contact that we saw the replay of through turn 3 earlier on. Coming down to the end of it here. I think Nielsen crossed the line recently, so that should be 3 laps to go, I think. So, watching this fight, flying down towards Tarzan once more. Could see the slight defensive move from Jokel, just kind of hovering off the side of the track to try and dissuade a crazy maneuver from Adamczyk, who slips up off the exit. Maybe some tiny bit of tire spin on that curb. Can't do that right now. Reinsberg's right there waiting. Sherburne also in there. Glenn, I mentioned earlier, everybody is just right on top of him. They're going to pounce as soon as he puts a foot wrong. Back into Masters once more. Glancing off that apex curb, but not hitting it too hard. Can chuck the car off the track through there. Switching back and forth now. Drivers trying to look for the over-under. You can see them each trying to pull a slightly different line from their competitors, hoping that maybe it gets them something. So let's see, a minute 34 laps, 35 laps for most of these cars. And there we go, 2 to go as Nielsen just crossed the line now. So can confirm 2 more laps. It was close. Hopefully drivers put in the right amount of fuel. And anticipating how close it was going to be on how many laps were left. It's getting close between Adamczyk and Jokel. Jokel still holding the inside. Adamczyk doesn't care. He's still going to send it. He's going to get into the side of him slightly. Tiny bit of contact. They'll get away with it. Jokel now has supreme pressure. He is going to have to truly cover off those moves in these final 2 laps. And they also can't open the door to those behind. Maybe that's what Adamczyk is feeling urged on by. Maybe he doesn't want to become a victim himself and lose positions. He's going to go a little bit wide through Shevlock. That's not going to help his case, Reinsberg. Adamczyk sticking close to Jokel, though. Watching this train, I think actually close up a little bit on Tong and McKinney, too. It looks like actually they're about the same that last lap. So maybe not. They looked closer, but sometimes that can be a trick of the eye, especially with the accordion effect through so many different corners. Meanwhile, white flag there on the bottom of your screen as Barney lets him know 1 to go. He's led almost every lap of this race, just giving it away during the pit sequence. And he's got, well, actually a fair bit less gap than before. I wonder if he's managing this race, Nielsen. Let's stick with this fight, though. This has been a lot more fun to watch, especially since last time we saw a big attempt from Adamczyk. Look at them once again down to the middle of the track. Jokel's not leaving the door open. This time, Adamczyk cannot get the little bit of an overlap that he did last time. I'm pretty certain that that time they were quicker, actually, than Tong. Yeah, it was about almost half a second faster. Tong dropping off of McKenny. He just needs to hold on for one more lap. Hopefully, he's got enough fuel. I really hope he's not slowing down because he's realized that he was just shy on this one. That would be a horrible way to lose this right at the end. I'm keeping half an eye on the leader, don't worry. But we're watching this as long as we can, just in case there's a change amongst these positions. They've worked so hard. They don't want to give it away on the final lap. That's a lap car, so don't worry. He's just letting them go. Those behind are a little bit compromised by him, though. And that could offer chances, but we got to get away from it because Nielsen is coming to the line now. Victory for the 04. Back on top once again, responding to his rivals as Collingwood will get second and Baker will wind up P3. Looks like Tong's going to be able to hold on to that 7th place, although he's still down 3 from where he began. Oh, and he's slowing. Is he out of fuel? He's out of fuel. Tong is going to lose out right at the very end. I wondered if he was losing time because of that. Oh, no. All the way down to 11th, right at the very end. It is every driver's worst nightmare. It sputtered as cars were breathing down his neck. Chapman is going to be able to get 17th, just over Rondeau. It was some tight fights farther up. Adamczyk only about a 10th behind Jokel at the end. And Milan, Reber is going to finish ahead of him. Boy, Milan's got to be just kicking himself. He wound up going from 3rd down to 21st. Seeing if we can find a replay. Wonder if we could ride on board with Terrence Tong to hear the car start to sputter. Here it is. Let's listen in. Yeah, there it goes. We can hear it now. You can see the revs. And he's helpless. All he can do is keep his foot to the floor and hope. And across the line he goes. Just, it's gutting to watch. I can only imagine what it feels like inside the cockpit. But that is pretty much everybody across the line now at this stage. So let's go through our results with Klaus Nielsen responding with his 2nd win of Series 11. Mark Collingwood will finish 2nd behind him. And then Joachim Baker will finish P3. Julian Velez finished 4th, and Dave Hernandez came in 4th with points. He got a valuable 5th out there. Michael McKenny was P6, and Matt Jokel will be 7th. Then it's Patrick Adamczyk in P8, and Rick Reinsberg in 9th. Chris Sherburne rounds out your top 10. But the big story, our points leader came in starting 4th, only finishes 11th, which means Klaus Nielsen likely is going to be our points leader after this race. David Glenn going to be finishing P12 as Kim Fricke will be 13th, and then Gary Reese will be 14th. Then it's Scott Bowers in 15th position, up 10 from where he started. We didn't give him a lot of screen time, but clearly he had a great race. Peter Coomer was 16th and Dean Chapman 17th, and it was Mark Rondeau finishing P18. Eddie Jenks going backwards a bit himself into 19th. Jonathan Reber moving forwards, going from 29th to 20th. Then it's Philip Milan, who missed out on a great opportunity, only collects a 21st position. Ben Leung was 22nd, and Matt Owens 23rd. All 3 of them started in the top 10. None of them finished in the top 20. Matt Owens was 24th as David Palmer was P25. Then it was Andy Green in 26 as Mark Doran, despite a late race penalty, actually managed to finish on the lead lap in 27th. Jeremy Mazzarello was the first one to lap down in 28th, and then it's Charlie Boyer in 29th. Richard Franco in P30. Last few cars were Robert Cottle 31st and Lenny Holland 32nd. They were the last 2 to actually finish the race. Brandon Harrison, Mike Matson, Duncan James, J.R. Gregory, Drew Kenny, all DNFs in this race. Well, I've been thoroughly enjoying the racing here at Zandvoort for Porsche Club of America. But we've only got one more with the Pro Class tomorrow night. So make sure and join us Wednesday, March 14th, for that last race of Zandvoort, but not the last race of Series 11, as we'll have more action to come at places such as Mugello for the next time out on the 27th here for the Club Class. Big thank you goes to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as to our team tonight with Dustin behind the scenes directing. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Peak. Race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.